It's Monday, and happy Martin Luther King Day to you. It's a wonderful day off. Wait a minute, I'm retired. Every day is a wonderful day off. Well, similitudes. What are similitudes? There's something that has a similarity. Jesus used a lot of similitudes. He used the vine and the branches, and he used many others. But today I want to focus on the vine and the branches. It's found in John chapter 15, verses 1 through 17. It brings back a lot of fond memories that I had of preaching in Brandon, Florida at Southside Baptist Church, and the fact that sometimes I used visual aids to try to drive home a point. And I remember bringing a cherry tree branch from my tree in Tryon, North Carolina, and said we're going to set it right here on the table in front of the pulpit, and we're going to wait for it to bear cherries. Well, you know very well that that branch from the cherry tree would never bear any fruit, having been cut off from the tree and sitting there on the table. But for the next couple of weeks I left it there and say, guess what? It still hasn't produced any fruit, reminding them of the message. So in John 15, verses 1 through 17, you find Jesus saying, I am the vine and you are the branches. In verse 2 he says there are two kinds of branches. One is the one with no fruit, and the other one is the one with fruit. Now, it's not unlike what we would do with a rose bush or a fruit tree or anything else, that if we had a branch that was not producing any fruit or flowers, that we would cut it off. And that's exactly what Jesus said would happen to branches that had no fruit. As a matter of fact, if you go down to verse 6, it says they'll dry out and be burned up in the fire. But what is unusual about verse 2 of John 15 is that the tree branch that has fruit, he prunes. Oh, wait a minute, why? Why would you mess with a branch that was producing fruit? Why would you cut in and possibly hurt a branch that was doing what it was supposed to do? Well, he explains that quite well in this section of Scripture. In verse 4, he says, he that abides in me and I in you, he can produce fruit. And he says, but without me you can do nothing. That certainly explains the fruitless branch. But you still have that question in your mind, why would he prune? Why would he cut into that good branch that was bearing fruit? And the answer is found in verses 8 and 11 and in the text of this particular passage of Scripture. He prunes the branch so that it will be able to bear more fruit. And so it is with the Christian life. Many times, even though we're doing quite well, he has to do a little cutting, taking away some things that would distract us from the purpose that he's given us in life. I remember many years ago, Lois gave her testimony about how she was playing tennis 3 days a week and realized that it was cutting into the work that she was supposed to be doing for the Lord, and she went back to playing tennis just once a week because some pruning was necessary. Nothing wrong with the tennis. It was good exercise. It was good for her physical health. She was having fellowship with other Christian ladies, but it wasn't the best. And she was able to bear more fruit by the pruning. Maybe there's something in your life today that needs some pruning. Maybe there's some good things in your life, but they're not the best things. Maybe you're finding time to do a lot of good stuff, but maybe you're not finding the time to do the best stuff. He says, again, apart from me, you can do nothing. Now, here's the very interesting thing. In this particular section of Scripture, in verse 11, we probably ought to read it first. In verse 11, it says, these things I've spoken to you, that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be made full. You see, even in the pruning, God's desire is to make you more fruitful. He's to give you the fullness of joy. I titled this particular message when I preached it in Florida many years ago, Cut Back, Cut Out, burned up, or bumper crop? What kind of branch are you today? Are you the one that's cut back so you can bear more fruit? Are you the one that's cut out because you're not bearing any fruit? The one that will be burned up in the end? Or are you one that has accepted the pruning and taken the action that he's shown you to do so that you produce a bumper crop? That's your thought for the day. You know, one final closing thought. The one thing that I noticed, and I'm certainly not an expert on Martin Luther King, is that he did not condone terrorism, violence, or civil disobedience that meant hurting people or destroying innocent people's property. He was the one that believed in social disobedience that called attention to a problem so that dialogue would begin and the problem would be resolved. I have the utmost respect for him. Some of you may be saying, yeah, but what about his indiscretions? Proved he was human. Aren't we all? Doesn't God deal with imperfects quite well? He did a great thing. He advanced the cause of injustice for a whole group of people. And he ought to be honored and remembered because of the way he did it. In a nonviolent, in a just way. That's the way we ought to settle all of our issues. That's your thought for the day. God bless you and have a great day.